This is a CP16 16mm motion camera created by Cinema Products in Los Angeles from the early 1970s. It's a camera designed for recording sound as well as filming, and was used probably primarily for news gathering or documentary work. It takes a 400-foot magazine on the back there. It currently doesn't have its lens on the front because I'm going to show you it working. But what I would say about these cameras, they're extremely well made, but the electronics in them die. I've bought, I think now 5 or 6 of them, and only one of them still works. The reason being, I think, is that one of the circuit boards has a large mercury cell on it, which leaks its contents over the years and just destroys the circuit boards. And not being an absolute expert in what those circuit boards are doing, fixing it to its original spec is expensive and probably not that easy. So what I've done with this particular camera is I've ripped all the 1970s electronics out of it and put on the back of it this little aluminium box, which contains a little voltage controller for the original motor, has an on-off switch, and then a potentiometer for controlling the speed of the motor and therefore the frames per second. So if I then switch this on, you get a very nice blue light, and switch on the display back here. The numbers that are shown on the little voltage controller are somewhat arbitrary in that they don't represent frames per second, but are merely a meter from 0 through to 100 for the different speeds that the motor runs at. So then the question arises, how do you work out what the frames per second is relating to a particular setting on the back of this camera? So what I've done is, having put that on the back of the camera and got it successfully working, is use a tachometer, shining it on the mirror of the camera, which is the rotating shutter, and setting that to a certain frequency. I'm able to work out what 24 frames per second, 25 frames per second, 36 frames per second would be relating to the number on the back here. So far what I've discovered is that 48 equals 24 frames per second. So if I then press the shutter release on the front of the camera, you'll see that working. I'm not using a tachometer for this particular video. It's really quiet. I've replaced the belts and lubricated, and it's working really nicely thus far. And then if I then play about with the speed control on the back here, you see the mechanism go faster and faster, or very slow. So in other words, what would have been a pretty heavy paperweight is now a functioning camera. And by using a tachometer, I will have a chart of numbers relating to the frames per second in the camera. It isn't crystal synced, which means it will not have the same accuracy that it originally shipped with for sound recording. But as Soundstripe film is a thing of the past, for a majority of applications, crystal sync isn't essential. So we have a working camera.